energy and fight. Give them some strength. Our Congressman Jonathan Jackson.
Welcome, Third Baptist, and to all of those that are visiting Third Baptist, welcome. Thank you, Pastor Hughes, for opening the doors of this church, going beyond just the stained glass windows so we can indeed live the word that we have to fight for now. I'd like to thank my dear friend, Alderman Mosley. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Brother Stan Moore. Stan and I go way back, and thank you to his lovely wife and to all of the distinguished persons in here. Thank you. I'm going to have to step out in 15 minutes. I've got to do the Reverend Al Sharpton show at 4 o'clock, so I'm going to do that in a room here. But I want to share something with you. The one big bill, you're going to hear a lot of good details on there, but they are doing a tactic that they call in the Trump administration of calling flooding the zone. Flooding the zone means they're putting so many things in the media at one time that you're distracted, that you can't keep up. Did he just bomb something in Venezuela? Did he just call Antifa, whoever Antifa is, people that were out there on the Nose Kings March? What did he just do with cutting the food assistance program that, according to states by states, are going to start dropping people come November 1st? Or is it talking about the Medicaid and the issues that we're going to experience? 50% of all the children born in the United States of America come through the Medicaid program. Some people say, I'm not on Obamacare, I'm on the Affordable Care Act. Well, Affordable Care Act is Obamacare. And then what is called Affordable Care Act / Obamacare has different labels. It may be called CHIPS, it may be called Molina Health, it may be called, in California, SoCal. If you're in Kentucky, maybe KCAL. So there are all these different names of what is exactly labeled as Medicaid. It's on the chopping block. What is he doing first with this shutdown? The purpose of the shutdown, if you will, he did 35 days in 2019. He wants to break that record. Part of his plan is to show the cruelty. This talk of waste, fraud, and abuse, saying that there were persons that were undocumented. I don't like to use the term illegal. There is no illegal person. You might have come here without papers, but no child, a child of God, is an illegal being. We were once called contraband in the United States when we tried to escape slavery. So when you see a child zip-tied and put on the ground in the middle of the night on 75th and South Shore, also know they kicked in the doors of U.S. citizens. So you can see a U.S. citizen zip-tied with minivans going down the block. Commissioner, on my block just yesterday, 3 gardeners were arrested, picked up in unmarked vans with long barrel guns coming out. This form of terror is happening everywhere. So you're gonna see people afraid to go to the doctor, afraid to go to the hospital. When people don't have an opportunity to work, they stay in. Violence happens in the house. It's corrosive to the whole society. What is he doing with this big, ugly bill and the shutdown of the United States government? He wants to use this to force the Democrats to try to concede on the health care reform. This is the way government works. You're supposed to go through the House. They pass this on a purely partisan basis. 218 all Republicans passed the bill without one Democratic vote, without one Democratic amendment. When you talk about the Affordable Care Act, there were over 400 amendments proposed, over 200 Democrats, over 200 Republicans. Amendments were incorporated into the Affordable Care Act. They would not let one of our amendments get in there. One of the things I had pushed for to get in there was not to change the requirements on the able-bodied without children. Don't change that requirement. Now you're gonna see, until we overturn this bill, people now are gonna have to work up until the age of 64, not 54, if they don't have children at home. I asked one of my Republican colleagues, I said, how about if you have a child that's 14 at home and you say the law states 13? They say that's the law now. I said, well, in the state of Illinois, you can't have a child to stay at home under the age of 14. He says, oh, I didn't know that. You didn't let us have a debate about it. There was not one debate about the whole bill. That's something that makes it ugly. I said, when you get older and you have to take care of your parents and your children, can we put our parents on our insurance? He says, that's a good idea. We never had a discussion about it. So there are going to be some things that are structurally flawed about it. The second thing you're going to see is when they talk about cutting Medicaid, it's always been about ensuring the most vulnerable, the poorest people in our society. 16 to 22 million people are going to be affected by this cut to Medicaid. If you've got 80% of your hospital working on Medicare and 20% on Medicaid, some people say, well, I don't need Medicaid, I'm on Medicare. That 20% is a margin of profit for the hospital. Therefore, the people that are on Medicare are going to have to pay more. And if they don't, they're going to have less services. It's going to affect the whole pool. Nobody wants to talk about all of healthcare. Just imagine if only people that had a car that's 5 years or newer were having to have insured, and all the other rest of the cars could be uninsured. Well, by definition, the people that have the most expensive cars will pay the most. And then if you get hit by a hoopty, you're going to be mad about it. We are all healthcare objects. If somebody has the measles, the flu, the COVID, you want to make sure they go to the hospital. You don't want somebody barking and coughing next to you. You don't want to hear about a woman that has sepsis and a woman that has an issue that can't have a child to come to term. I give you one example. This is for the men specifically. A colleague of mine wanted to bring their child out to see Vice President Harris the other day. And when they got there, they didn't have their child. And I really wanted to see the young lady's daughter. And she says, my daughter couldn't make it. I said, well, I was half annoyed because the ticket was expensive. Like, why didn't you bring your daughter? She says to me, she could not make it. What does that mean? Like, so I'm saying, okay, well, but she gave the ticket to a young man outside that came in and made good use of it. Then later on, she told me my daughter was going through cramps. Gentlemen, in the 1,000 issues I could have thought of on why that child didn't make it, cramps was not in the top 1,000. Women have different physiological, biological needs that have to be considered. This is the problem with the failure of the leadership of Pete Hegseth. The failure of Pete Hegseth and talking about men and women in the military have to do the same thing. They cannot, but they have an able mind and they can think. Being in the military doesn't mean you have to do the same amount of push-ups. He is a fool. The other point I want to make to you before I jump on this case with Reverend Al Sharpton is something that is the least reported story in the United States of America right now. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It had a section 5 saying if you had a historical area that had shown racism and discrimination, you had to have pre-clearance from the federal government, the Justice Department. Those Confederates always hated that issue. So they stripped away the pre-clearance issue, and as soon as they did that, they started redoing districts in 2013, and here's where you started hearing about Chads and Dimples and votes that didn't count, all that malarkey that started going on. Then now they've gone on to hear this case called Louisiana versus Callis. And I'm gonna leave you with this story. My friend, Congressman Cleo Fields, he got into the United States Congress 30 years ago. At the age of 29, a family of 9 from the state of Louisiana, he fought from a state senate to have the 2nd district, a 2nd congressional seat from Louisiana for African Americans. We know Louisiana is better than 40% black. They're gonna tell you it's 30% black. Well, we know in 1896, they came up with the law, the 1-drop rule. 1 drop of Negro blood makes you a Negro by the United States Constitution. That came out of Louisiana. That came as an issue of the Plessy versus Ferguson 1896 case. There was a black man, 7/8 white, called an octoroon. We call them light-skinned. He was an octoroon. He bought a first-class ticket to ride on a train car. They kicked him off. That case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And as a result of that, the Supreme Court wrongly decided separate but equal, which meant there was going to be no equality. They created a black graveyard and a white graveyard, a black school and a white school, a black hospital and a white hospital. But we never had the same amount of resources. And you can still see that scar tissue to this day. Blacks have been senators, blacks have been governors, blacks have been in the Congress, after that law passed and the black codes came in, they removed every black that had been in elected office. When Reverend Martin Luther King spoke in 1963 and said, "I have a dream," there was only one black elected official in the entire South in the United States of America. We had to get the 1964 voting rights. 1964 Civil Rights Act. We had to get the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And a part of that 1965 Voting Rights Act, there was something called Section 2 that said you can have majority minority districts. You can have maximum representation of the population. Well, this past Wednesday, October 15th, I was in the United States Supreme Court. They heard a case called Louisiana versus Callis. Whether or not we can have majority minority districts is on the Supreme Court's docket and up for deliberation right now. My friend Congressman Cleo Fields fought to get the second congressional seat in Louisiana in about 1993, I believe it was, 1993, 1995. Don't forget October 15th, 1991, Clarence Thomas was sworn in to become a Supreme Court justice. Now, 32 years later, 34 years later, Clarence Thomas is still on the Supreme Court. He's hearing that case again. The first time it got up there was wrongly decided. It was brought by David Dukes, the Ku Klux Klansman. He had my friend Congressman Cleo Fields removed because they took away the majority minority district out of Louisiana. You hear me, Reverend? Now they've heard the case again after my friend Congressman Cleo Fields got sworn in on January 3rd of 2025 this year. They've come back with another case, Louisiana versus Callis. They're saying the African American community is discriminating, stereotyping against the white community. They are challenging, as we speak today, whether or not we can have a majority minority district. If you see this case wrongly decided, right now we have 56 members of the Congressional Black Caucus in the Congress. We can stand to lose 19 congressional seats. It won't stop there. If you think Students for Fair Admissions is bad, if they undo the Voting Rights Act, let me say it to someone that really understands. I'm 59 years of age. I'm born in 1966. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. The Voting Rights Act is 60 years old. We got out of slavery in 1865, 160 years ago. It took us 100 years to get to a Voting Rights Act. It's taken us 60 years later to have the Voting Rights Act. I am the first generation of African Americans that was born in America with equal rights. And what the Supreme Court is doing now, my daughter has less rights than I've had all of my life. That's why this program is so urgent that we're here. If this case is wrongly decided, and my friend Cleo Fields' case is back before the Supreme Court again, if it's wrongly decided, they're going to test the constitutionality of majority minority districts. There are only 15 majority black districts in the United States of America. The first congressional district is a majority black district in the United States of America, and I'm going to do everything I can with you to fight to make sure we keep it a majority minority district. So you're going to hear a lot of conversations about redistricting. If that case goes against us, what you see in Students for Fair Admissions, where they say you can't have diversity, equity, inclusion, you can't have programs for women, you can't. Well, if they do that to the legislatures, that means can you have majority minority districts in the state Senate of Illinois? Can you have majority minority state rep seats? Can you have majority minority county commissioners? Can you have majority minority aldermanic districts? They will use the tyranny of their majority against us, and that will be decades that we have to fight back. But I want you to know we are prepared to fight back. With the leadership you have today, I want you to know the fight is on. I'm going to go and jump on Reverend Al Sharpton's program. I thank you so much for inviting me out. I want to come back out. I want to participate. Thank you for letting me be a part. I want to continue to educate our people. Thank you, Pastor, for opening your doors. We are dealing with these people that are called Christian nationalists. And they call themselves the Christian right. And somebody says we need to deal with the right Christians because what they're doing has nothing to do with Christianity. They want to honor a Mark Kirk. What's his name? Charlie Kirk. Don't get me started on him. God bless you. I thank you. We're going to be in touch.